The McDonald's Snack Wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch Snack Wrap. Spicy Snack Wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack Wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Next Level Pet people will do anything for their dogs. That means treating them with next level protection from parasites with NexGard Plus, afoxolaner, moxidectin, and parental chewable tablets. NexGard Plus chews provide one-and-done monthly protection against fleas, ticks, heartworm disease, roundworms, and hookworms, all in a tasty beef-flavored chew. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Dogs should be tested for existing heartworm infection prior to starting a preventive. Ask your vet about NexGard Plus chews.
To get the Crime Writers on Aftershow right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a punk rocker is shot in 1982, then his body disappears. A journalist explores whether their mother's claims of a cover-up are true. We'll go back to our 2019 review of the classic podcast series, The Ballad of Billy Balls. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, what are we going to hear in today's CWO Classic Rewind?
Okay, so this rewind was requested by Danielle Jorgensen.
Mm-hmm.
She would like to hear our April 15th, 2019 review of The Ballad of Billy Balls, hosted by Io Tillett-Wright, which at one point we referred to it as a fever dream set to synth music.
Kevin.
Yes.
This was so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what we thought about it. Did I even like this? Did I not like it? Do you remember?
Oh, well, I think it wasn't perfect, but
Okay.
we did have a lot of good things to say about it. So why don't we jump right into it?
Moving on. Crimetown Presents is back with a new series about true love and true crime. The Ballad of Billy Balls is a hit podcast that looks at the mysterious death of a New York punk-era musician told mostly through the eyes of his long-devoted and troubled girlfriend, Rebecca.
In the mid-'70s, Rebecca was a struggling model in New York.
You think I'm pretty, huh? You think I'm pretty? My whole life is a failure.
And then
Everybody thinks I'm gonna die before I'm 30, you know?
she met a musician
That's the truth!
named Billy Balls. Rebecca and Billy fell deeply in love.
I'm like in a hypnotic trance. When you are around, you have this hypnotic power over me. And sugar, it's bigger than the both of us.
They were the only ones in the world for each other. They were inseparable.
Host Io Tillett-Wright takes us on a personal journey filled with style and attitude. The audience is left to wonder if we'll ever know why Billy met his fate and whether the great love of Rebecca's life is at all what she remembers him to be. We are going to be talking about plot points for The Ballad of Billy Balls, so to remain spoiler-free, go to the time code listed in our show notes to hear our thumbs up or thumbs down review of this podcast. So, Kevin, the format and the sound of this podcast really sticks out. It's highly stylized, there's a lot of music, high production value. We also have a host with a voice we don't often hear in podcasts. Io identifies and says, I go by the pronouns he and him. And yet I think a lot of listeners could come to this and think that they're listening to a female narrator of the podcast. I find that to be such a refreshing thing to happen in this space where I think diversity of voices is so important. And it was one of the things about the podcast that really just got me right away, where I was like, this is the right person to be telling the story, but also it's a person that we don't often hear from in these stories.
Yeah, one of the things that when I heard the trailer that drew me to Ballad of Billy Balls was that it did you could tell it had the attitude, that broness, but it didn't sound like it was another bro doing it. Thought,
Right.
this would be an interesting perspective. And then it just became even more rich. We don't hear those voices in mainstream true crime, and I think it's worth noting that I think that that's significant. And it's also important because it is it's a personal journey for him, and so I think that his experiences are relevant to this mystery.
By the way, I don't think it's less bro because Io is in fact a him. So we can't say it's less bro because of that, because it is to me, it's very Crime Town, which is a very masculine sounding show. Let's just be real. Mm-hmm. Thumping drums, hard driving music, a lot of audio production. I have seen some criticism of this show, including in the reviews of the show on Apple Podcasts, that it's overproduced, that there's just a lot going on audio wise. Laura, since you are now a person who comments on audio production every time we do the show, which, by the way, congratulations, you've now become a nerd. What do you think about the audio production style of this show? Is it too much for you, or do you like it?
You know what? In another type of show, it might be too much, but I think where we're dealing with the music world and we're dealing with sort of this punk scene in New York, I feel like the type of production and the type of music that we're hearing with this show actually really complements it. And somebody who's tried to just put like one little music bit with my little podcast, it's well done.
Laura's right, because it's sort of the sensibility of the show. I'm thinking back to when we did Disgraceland. The one knock I had about Disgraceland was that it didn't seem like the music matched up with the stories about musicians. And even if you couldn't acquire the actual songs because of needle drop fees and things like that just, got in the way of a novice podcaster's development and production. You could have had music that was similar to or evocative of a certain era. So I think, you're right. To have this music come in and to have this attitude and to swear a lot, I think is of sort of a punk sensibility, which would be conspicuous if you didn't have it.
Right.
I think.
Well, it's punk, but it also sounds contemporary. But the one thing I want to say, one thing we didn't mention about The Village, which I loved, is they did actually use the music that they talked about in the podcast. When they'd have a person talking about the song they were hearing when something happened.
A little Elton John.
You heard that song, and I have to tell you, I know it's an investment to do that. It's either a risk or an investment. It's one of the two. You either, shouldn't be doing it, and you do, and that's a risk. Because, by the way, there are copyright laws. If you're doing criticism commentary, you can maybe do it, but if you're just saying a song name, you can't necessarily do it. But I appreciate those atmospheric, because it does help. It helps you get pulled in. Toby, I heard you make a noise when Kevin was talking about the sensibility and the sound of the podcast. Sounds like it may have been too much for you. Am I guessing wrong here?
It seemed like a little much, but then I also, the music that they played very prominently, this weird keyboard with a guy singing.
From Crime Town, I'm Io Tillett Wright. And this is the Ballad of Billy Balls.
That doesn't sound at all like any of the stuff they played that's actually by Billy Balls. Their theme music or whatever seems quite different than sort of the punkish type stuff that he played. Maybe it's something else that he was involved in, but I did kind of thought there was this kind of weird disconnect between those two things, because when you actually hear him playing, it's a lot more sort of raw and less produced.
Right. But do you really want to hear that for as long as you have to hear this music that's in this podcast?
But it's weird because they do have, it's a very distinctive sound, right? That their little theme thing. It's distinctive, but not in a way that has anything to do with Billy Ball's music. Yeah. So that, I don't know, whatever. It's not that big a deal.
I guess I kind of like it, though, because it sounds to me like Io. It sounds like it really goes with his delivery. It's contemporary and it's edgy. It works sonically. I do appreciate a good sonic landscape for a podcast. I try to create them for the shows that I create. I think it works even though it's not the same.
Toby's right. It's kind of like a knife's edge, where you're right there. It could go either way.
Right.
And so
I
think
it's probably not that important is what you're saying.
No, but I think it's an artist's choice, and it's a taste, and where it might be you can execute it perfectly, and it's still not going to be somebody's cup of tea.
One thing that I want to ask you guys about before we get to the story and Rebecca and all the stuff that happens is the sense of place, because we talked about that a little bit in our previous conversation about The Village. Lower East Side, New York City, 1970s, and then we hear, we'll talk about that in a second about Io's own experiences, but the scene, living in a storefront, sort of squatting on couches, moving there from other places, and it's just The Lower East Side to this day, it's like, a pocket of Manhattan that is unique and interesting. And even though it has become much more gentrified, there are still more, rent-controlled housing down there. It's a very diverse part of New York where you can walk around and feel like you still see real people. Kevin, I'll never forget, you and I went to a wedding on the Lower East Side. We went to a super dive bar, the kind of dive bar that does not exist really anywhere else in Manhattan. Where the beer was $2 and they had a vending machine that the only prize inside of it was Hall & Oates lapel pins.
Oh, I remember that.
Which were just random. Yeah. This was not a Hall & Oates bar. It was a really gritty bar, but everything was, it was weird. That's Lower East Side.
Yeah.
And I think the sense of place comes across, and that story about the grand piano and CBGB's is part of that. I love that. I love it. I think it's just really good. And it's certainly not a scene we've heard in any other podcast. Think about the places we've been taken by other podcasts. LA, small towns, the South, whatever. We've never been taken to Lower East Side Manhattan before.
It's a different New York than we had in Convicted, for example.
Absolutely.
Or Conviction, for example.
Laura, did it feel like Mars to you when you were hearing these stories?
Yeah, pretty much. This was not where we went on the Boy Scout camp out. But I loved the description of, Rebecca moving in with the porn stars living next door.
In the next little abandoned office was a little teenage pair, a little white girl and a little black boy that were porn workers. And he would wear his bathrobe,
And that's where, one weekend, a man showed up named Billy Balls.
But it definitely did take you to a different sort of place. I really felt transported when I listened to this podcast in terms of the people they interviewed, the scene they described, combined with the music that they played as they were doing this. It really had a whole effect of really setting a scene in a different way that we have. I mean, I haven't felt in a while listening to a podcast.
Well, now let's just get to the main event because we've been dancing around it a little bit in the last couple minutes. I was our reporter, but his primary interview is with our narrator, who's sort of filling in a lot of the details of the story, and that is Rebecca, who might be the most unreliable narrator we've ever had in a podcast, filling in details for us ever. Right, Kevin?
Yeah, probably up there with John McLemore from S-Town.
Yeah.
Although I think John McLemore was more full of shit, right?
Yeah.
I say it in an endearing way, where I think Rebecca, her descriptions of things, it's like a Goldilocks thing where it doesn't seem just right. Where she certainly seems like she's sure of herself. But, yeah, it's is she self-delusional? Does she just remember these things wrong? Is she completely
it's 35
correct?
years ago.
It's 35 years ago, yeah.
Right. And
but do you think he had meat hooks in his chest when he was in the hospital?
Literal meat hooks?
Yeah.
Probably not.
That was okay, well, what are we actually hearing here?
That was a little weird.
All right, so this is a complicated character we're talking about. Now, I'm just going to mention it now because it is the big reveal we get at the end of episode 2.
We are in the spoiler section.
And I will say, I believe that the first 2 episodes should have been 1 episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because
I'm with you.
It is a barrier to get through 2 episodes of backstory to get this really astonishing and interesting and unusual reveal that the reporter of this story is the child of the main character in the story. It turns out Io, our narrator, is Rebecca's kid.
I remember just the raw feeling of the fucking pain of the grief. And I would like to not remember that feeling because the only thing that stopped it was you being born. All right?
Rebecca did have a baby. Me.
It sounds like we all agree that first setup maybe was a bit too long.
Yeah, because it was a great twist.
It was a great twist. Yeah. I do think there, and I get it. I think there was care there where the producers were trying to just really get us invested in Rebecca's character because she comes off as an unusual person in myriad ways. We hear how she lives. We hear how she looks. We hear how she talks.
She won't sit down.
We sort of hear her what her sensibility is, and maybe they were thinking we should spend more time with her to get the audience to feel something. But I do think the twist overcomes that, and you get there when you hear Io talking to his mom.
you so much, man. I love you so much, my bud. My golden orange bud.
So, Toby, Rebecca as a character, we can't not talk about how, like, she is just sort of a standout and a puzzle, right?
Yeah. I mean, she's definitely like, she's a character. She's eccentric. You know, I think between her and then Io, you get a sense of the fact that, you know, she's had some mental illness problems in the past. She's had substance abuse problems in the past, but she's got a very sort of strong and interesting way of talking. It's a little bit hard to figure out how much of it is like literally true, but she does a good job of giving you a sense of maybe more what it was like to be perceiving living in that situation rather than exactly like what the day-to-day was. It goes on pretty long, but I found her fairly appealing. Like, she seemed like she'd be kind of fun to like sit down and have a coffee with and just say, you know,
Well, she
tell
wouldn't
me
sit
about
down for the coffee, but she might stand with you for the coffee.
I'm just going to tell you, I feel exactly like Toby does in that regard. I loved her. Not just
yeah. It's just like, just tell me some stories.
Just want to interject one thing here that Io did reach out to us when he found out we were reviewing his podcast. Obviously, we hadn't done this yet, but he'd been getting some flack on the socials saying that his mom sounded like she was on drugs.
Are you a person who says the socials now?
I'm saying call them the socials.
Okay.
I'm even going to like unbutton.
Can you say online?
Online. Well, people think that she's stoned or she's strung out or drunk. And he says she's been sober for 11 years, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of the way that she talks.
Yeah.
And does she, without seeing or not knowing what she
had a
looks
hard
like?
Life.
It's radio, so you hear a voice and you create a portrait in your head of that. That's just sort of the nature of the medium. So yeah, I could see why people would think that.
Well, also Io describes her as having like muscle on bone, like the sinewyiness. And then when you look at the photos, like
you nailed it.
You see it.
Right. But what she has is a vulnerability.
Yes.
Which I think is the power of the plot. Because if the idea here is Io is going to find out what happened to Billy Balls for his mother, because he has to give her the closure or the understanding. The consequence of not being able to do it is her frailty.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that she's in that way not strong. Strong in all these other ways.
She talks about Billy like he's still alive. She was talking yesterday.
Yeah.
This has been like decades. And she talks about, like, she looks at a picture, she's like, he's so sexy.
Yeah.
I'm like, she talks about him like she saw him yesterday.
So as opposed to just, I'm going out for this curiosity.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can bring this back, I can heal my mother's wound about this in a way. And that's what's emotionally interesting.
Laura, did you see that twist coming, that Rebecca was Io's mother?
Absolutely not. No, because I had kind of been lulled into this sort of sense of like almost like hypnosis by listening to Rebecca talk, and I was like, okay, enough, let's move on, because it was like the first episode was okay, the second episode I was like, oh my God, she's still talking, and then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, where did that come from? When we had the sudden twist, so I was very surprised by that, but I think it just definitely made it a little more interesting as it went on to throw that twist in there when they did. I just feel like that the first and second episode was just a little bit too long for me.
It's funny because I said that I agree with you. I think they should have connected them to one, but when you get the twist, you realize why they did it in 2 episodes.
Yeah. Oh no, it makes sense.
And so it was sort of like retroactive forgiveness. However, I think that in this medium, if you're not going to do just like a binge drop, if you're going to do week by week or whatever, you got to like think about that and think about the build that you're going to do before the oh shit moment. Like, you got to be thoughtful about it. And that is my like one criticism of this podcast, which was otherwise to me just like super fucking interesting in like 100 different ways. So the one thing that I keep thinking about this podcast, it has a promise here. Before even we know that Rebecca is Io's mom, he tells us he wants to find out what happened to Billy. And my thing is that even possible at this point, given not just Rebecca's unreliability, but also the unreliability of other characters that were in the story at that time, who all seem to have theories about the shooter being an undercover cop, and we know there's drugs involved, and all that stuff to me is like quasi-believable in a way. But do you think we're going to get answers here? Laura, what do you think?
No. But I did love that they were buying drugs for the diplomat. I was like, this is
That's a great story.
Interesting.
For his orgy.
An international orgy.
Oh, sex with masks. Kevin's favorite thing.
Oh, God
It
damn it.
reminded me of, we have a guy in town who lived like a double life for a long time. He's now like in his 90s, but he was like a dry cleaner by day, and then he was a male model in New York. And he used to tell stories like this about New York,
Is this
about
the guy at
when
the
he'd
bar?
go down. Yeah.
Okay.
You met him. And so I was listening to this. I'm like, yeah, this sounds totally plausible. But as I was listening to it, I was like, I feel like that was sort of the premise of this podcast when we get sucked in, is like, we're going to find out what happened to Billy Balls for Rebecca, for his baby girl. And I'm like, no, I think this is more like a journey of sort of personal discovery in terms of, trying to find out a little bit more about his mother's life and Billy's life and what happened. But I'm like, nobody knows what the hell happened, because like, honestly, not to be, but at the time that all this was going on, a lot of these people weren't totally sober at the time period that this happened. And it was a long time ago. And like, honestly, the police aren't still around. Like, we haven't heard from any of the police or anybody official at this point. We've just heard from sort of random, sort of interesting people that were involved. I loved the person we heard from who, had the whole theory, the one that was buying the drugs and stuff. But I don't know. I'd be excited, I guess, if we found out, but I don't think I'm going into it now expecting that I'm going to find out.
Toby, I was thinking when I was listening to this, Io tells the story of his own childhood, and it sounded like it was super rough, right? At one point we hear a detail about Billy, which we'll get to in a second, and his high school friends, who I fucking loved, all those dudes, talking about how he was arrested by the FBI when he was 15, and Io was like, man, I used to sell aspirin and pretend it was ecstasy or whatever. Yeah. So we know that there's some tough stuff there that this reporter who's doing this story contended with growing up. Do you think this story might be a way for Io to reconcile his own childhood? I mean, his mom basically lived with a ghost during his whole childhood. He says that there was never a time he didn't know him. And in fact, his mother tried to convince him that he's the reincarnation of her dead boyfriend.
The timing is eerie. The timing is very eerie.
Because there's some spirit floating around that just needs a little human body to crawl into. And you and I know who that spirit is.
That would be fucking crazy.
So it's actually trying to find out more about the person who you are reincarnated from?
I don't think that Io literally thinks that.
I don't think that's
he's
his
a reincarnation
thesis of this.
No, but I do think he's using that as a way in to tell the story. Like, my mom always told me this, so I'm going to go in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I do think in sort of a metaphorical sense that Billy was probably, a presence in his life growing up, because Billy was so, at least seems in the telling to be pretty omnipresent in Rebecca's life. So I think that's valid. It's a little bit weird to me that it's a podcast in some ways, in that it seems so personal that, he's doing this for his mom and trying to get her some closure. You kind of hope it turns out because if the fear is that it's not going to give Rebecca closure, like having it not give her closure in this very public way seems a little weird.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Toby, just quick note. You did say in your notes to me, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy is true poetry. Was that a sarcastic note or was that a real note?
No, well, I don't know if it's like up there with, Shakespeare, but it's a great punk line.
It's a very good punk line.
If I'd written it, I'd be happy.
Kevin, one thing I found myself thinking over and over and over again listening to this podcast is, how did this come to be?
The podcast?
Yeah. Was Io's original pitch? Because this is obviously Io's pitch, right?
Yeah.
It's a story that only Io could tell because only Io has access to Rebecca, who still lives in the margins, it sounds like. Uh-huh. I found myself wondering this whole time, like, where does Rebecca buy clothes? Where does Rebecca live now? Where does she get money? Like, I don't know any of those answers, right? This is a story that only he can tell. And is the pitch that this was originally going to be, something, and then it became a podcast? I would just love to know the path for how this came together, because it's just so freaking unusual. Mm-hmm. Do you ever think that way when you listen to shows like this? Like, how did this even come to? Because sometimes it's obvious. It's like, I'm a reporter, I have a story, let's make it a podcast. This isn't that, right?
Right. Yeah. Usually I'm like, how did this get to be a podcast? When I ask that question. Not just going to become a podcast. I mean, he wrote a book, his memoir.
Oh, okay.
That's how I think it came to be.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Which could be some of the source material, but obviously he's going in a different direction where he's, looking for this erstwhile figure.
Can I ask you another question about that?
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I expected in this podcast to be super bored by, but was the complete opposite, was the turn where I was like, we're just going to go into Billy's past and find more about him. And he starts just sort of like finding out who he was as a kid and like calling childhood friends. And I'm like, oh, here we go. We're just going to hear from like a bunch of boring people. He was a kid named William who like won piano competitions and grew up in like suburban New Jersey. And I found all of those guys on those phone calls to be like, I want to make a TV show with just those guys. I don't know. I mean, this is what you're talking about finding interesting people and giving them voice, and like it wasn't boring. Like that should have been boring, right?
Right. One of Io on his resume for Io is that he was a co-host on the MTV show Catfish.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you think about it, that deals with people who say they're one thing or they aren't who you think they are.
So he knows. He knows when you're going to get the good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this whole Billy Balls thing is like that. Is this the person that
William Heitzman or whatever?
Not an intentional, it's a false identity catfish kind of thing, but the idea of who are people that we think that they are and what is an interesting person. And so I think that he's doing good bringing out, and I just, when you just hear like the conversations, he certainly sounds like it's somebody that you want to gab with on the telephone. He kind of has that charisma.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't Billy Balls. Hey, man, Romeo loves. And then he'd do this weird thing, you go shake his hand, and he'd do that thing with the middle finger on your palm. And you go, oh, and he'd give you that look like, hey, man. You go like, what? It's like that.
Unlike, the guy from To Live and Die in L.A., like, I just want to hang up with you.
Listen to me cry and then exploit me later. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was just thinking when I was listening to that part too is that these guys, they tell the story about the Billy they knew as a kid, Billy. And then we hear all these stories about him as a young adult wearing clown shoes, driving a hearse, pushing a giant piano down to CBGB's. And all of it sounds not real. It all sounds like this cannot be the same person. It's some weird composite. And I think where some other podcasts might be trying to make like, let me give you the real thing. We're never going to get the real thing. We're just getting lots of super interesting people's ghost-like impressions of a real thing. And all of those impressions are fucking bananas.
You mean it's more like a ballad?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and that is like,
another good title decision.
But how many people could you describe this way where it would be that many things? I mean, describe any of the four of us. Probably the person with the best
Laura
backstory.
Bricker.
Well, yeah, Laura. She's the horse. That's true. She's got the horse stuff. She's got like the
PI.
Yeah, she's the actual PI. Yeah. She used to do kegs and eggs at college.
Yeah. Kegs and eggs.
Yeah, probably Laura.
That was fun.
Everyone knows Riverlands.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Dak Shepard.
And I'm Monica Padman.
And we love talking to people. Every Monday and Wednesday, we sit down with actors, authors, scientists, really anyone interesting, and have real, honest conversations about life, success, failure, and everything in between. We get vulnerable, we get nerdy, and yes, I occasionally overshare.
Me too. And I would say more than occasionally.
Yeah, but some of our favorite stories actually come from you, our listeners. That's why we created Armchair Anonymous.
Yes, every Friday on Armchair Anonymous, we get to hear your funniest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping confessions. And boy, have you delivered.
Yeah, from disastrous dates to family secrets to the time you accidentally joined a cult or evacuated without authorization.
We really have heard it all.
Yes, we have, and we love it. So come pull up a chair. Listen to Armchair Expert wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you met All Modern? All Modern brings you the best of modern furniture and decor all in one place. And right now, you'll save up to 70% during Black Friday in July. Update your space with beds, nightstands, and more. All on sale at All Modern. Then get them delivered fast and free. 0 shipping fees and 0 stress. That's modern made simple. Shop All Modern's Black Friday in July, now through July 28th at allmodern.com.
So, Kevin.
Yes.
Who's the sponsor for this episode of Crime Writers On?
Oh, we welcome a new sponsor. It's Rula Health.
Ooh.
Finding the right mental health care should be simple and affordable, but for many, it is not. You got long wait times and high costs, and so that means like finding the right provider. It can really make getting help feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so that's where Rula comes in. Rula connects you with in-network licensed therapists that accept most major insurance, right? So it has been a very trying time for many people.
Yes.
And I always say, you don't maybe necessarily want to take everything that you're feeling
and put it on Facebook in a post?
Yeah, or tell your sister who's going to go because she might be the problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so like you really want to talk to a professional, find somebody that you're comfortable with. That's where Rula comes in. They partner with a network of over 10,000 therapists and psychiatrists nationwide, enabling you to find your personalized solution and the right therapist for you based on your needs, preferences, and state requirements. So every therapist is carefully vetted, so you are in expert hands. And for the in-network covered care for most major insurances, you pay for as little as $15 per session.
Wow. So join the thousands who have already turned to Rula for support on their journey to better mental health and well-being. Getting started is so easy. Just visit Rula.com/CWO.
CWO.
Today. That's RULA.com/CWO.
CWO.
To connect with a licensed therapist who truly cares. Your mental health matters. Individual costs depend on your insurance and deductible. So, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Oh, we're brought to you by Quince.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, summer's in full swing. It's getting hot. You still want to look good while you're out there. And that's where Quince comes in because their clothes are timeless. They feel luxurious, look elevated, and the quality is way beyond what you'd expect for the price. Now, I may as well just tear up this ad because Rebecca buys a lot more from Quince than I think we'll ever make in ad revenue.
It's literally my favorite place to buy clothes. You know that.
Yeah, you just bought a bunch of dresses, right, for the summer?
I bought 2 dresses, both for the summer and for a trip we're going on in the fall where you need to be able to pack, but also like have stuff that looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
I bought the Vintage Wash Tencel button front midi dress. That's the one I tried on for you the other day, remember?
Yeah.
And then I also bought the European linen shirt dress, which
I like
is like
that one. Yeah,
the one with the
definitely.
sash and these dresses are super high quality. Way less than $100. I think the Tencel one was like $70. They are incredibly beautiful, timeless dresses that I can wear on all sorts of occasions.
Yeah, there's 100% European linen tops. Those start at $30
They're
and
awesome.
a lot of other great items that you can get at Quince. So give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince.
Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime. Well, should we do what we do?
How about we do that?
How about we do that? How about we tell our audience, thumbs up or thumbs down, should they listen to the Ballad of Billy Balls, the new podcast, the hit podcast, by the way, from Crime Town Presents. Toby Ball, I'm going to start with you because your last name is Ball, and this podcast has your last name in it. What do you think, Toby Ball?
I feel as I'm owed something.
A little cut of the
Little
action.
cut, 2%.
My lawyer will be talking. Yeah, no, I thought it was. It's not perfect. It does a couple of things that drive me insane, but for the most part, I think it's good.
What drives you insane, Toby? I'm sorry, I can't leave that hanging. What drives you insane? One thing. What's one of the things that drives you insane?
Well, the thing that drives me the most insane is I think that the sort of New York talk works well when they're just sort of speaking off the cuff and going about doing things. I think when they try and write it into stuff that they read, I think that really sounds forced.
You mean singing like a motherfucker?
The one thing that I just like kind of groaned is like there's one point where Io says, he was Billy Balls and she was his baby doll or something. I'm like, oh God, come on. You don't have to do that. But this is actually one where I would say if people after the first or second episode are like, I don't know, I would say just stick with it. Because for me, I think the third episode, then especially the fourth episode, I thought was super interesting. And I think it's one of the few things that we do that I'll probably actually keep up with just because we always have just such an onslaught of stuff we're taking in.
Right.
That I usually, even things I like, I kind of like give up on. But I'll probably keep listening to this because I think the story is super interesting.
Laura Bricker, what about you? Thumbs up or thumbs down for the Ballad of Billy Balls?
I'm going to go thumbs up because this is definitely, I like the world building that goes on here. I mean, like I said, it really takes you inside a different time and a different place and really sets the scene. I mean, my only criticism, I mentioned is just I felt like the first and second episode was just really long with Rebecca talking, and it was a little too stream of consciousness a few times for me in terms of trying to follow what was going on. So I kind of tuned out a little bit, but the story itself is really interesting. The music is interesting. The production is interesting. So I'm going to keep going just to see where this goes and see if we, actually do solve some of this mystery other than via some of these sort of unreliable narrators who have theories.
Same. I'm a big thumbs up for this podcast, and I'm surprised that I am because I was halfway through the first episode and I was like, I don't really get it, what I'm listening to. That is my one big critique is the first 2 episodes should have been one. Only because, and I know this is the spoiler-free section, the twist at the end of episode 2 is so well done and so good and fun. And the other reason why I'm giving this a big thumbs up, frankly, and I've done this before in this show, and who knows if I'll feel this way, but the next thing that sounds just like this, I might hate it. I love when I hear something that doesn't sound like anything we have listened to before. That is one of those things. If you're interested in a fun journey true crime podcast that doesn't sound like anything you've ever heard before, listen to The Ballad of Billy Balls. Huge thumbs up for me for that reason. What about you, Kevin?
I'm also a thumbs up. I'm also like you, Rebecca. I was about 3/4 of the way through episode 1, and I'm like, what did I tell everybody to do? And again, I also agree that I think that episodes 1 and 2 could have been one bigger episode and really get you going. But it's a very interesting story. It is unlike anything else that is out there right now. I don't know whether or not we're going to, quote unquote, solve the mystery here. Whenever they have a, here's a telephone number at the end, if you have any ideas, I'm always kind of like, how much did you pack in that knapsack, Cub Scout?
You still looking for tips?
Still looking for tips? I wonder where this is going. But it doesn't quite matter because I think that this is very much like Serial. I think this is about the journey and not about the mystery. This seems more like this is I.O.'s story and not Billy's story. Something that's makes it its saving grace.
Yeah.
All right, so in the end, we had 2 thumbs up, 2 thumbs sideways.
Wow.
And we didn't finish, but I will say that it did end strong.
Hey, listen, sometimes we don't nail it.
It's not the mystery, it's the journey. And this was one that I.O., really did well. Big emotional ending there going to Billy Balls' grave site.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a really interesting confessional kind of podcast, and so that's why we remember it.
I think it stood the test of time too because it still ends up on a bunch of lists, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
All right, Kevin, does that wrap it up for us?
It does.
This show was recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also like to play our music loud enough to shake the walls while shirtless. On behalf of all the Crime Writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Partners in Crime Media.
This season, let your shoes do the talking. Designer Shoe Warehouse is packed with fresh styles that speak to your whole vibe without saying a word. From cool sneakers that look good with everything, to easy sandals you'll want to wear on repeat, DSW has you covered. Find a shoe for every you from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, New Balance, and more. Head to your DSW store or visit DSW.com today.